On this episode of Bouts Talking Bouts, happy to welcome on a multi-time HFC headliner, Coliseum combat veteran as of late, and some recent efforts as a bare-knuckle boxer. He's also fought for Bellator. I've got Tom Shoaff on the program. How's your day going so far there, man?
Day's going pretty well. To be honest with you, no complaints. How about yours?
Well, that's good, and yeah, I appreciate you asking. My day's going well, too. But just curious what your, first exposure to combat was. Like, were you watching an event on TV and you're just, instantly hooked? Like, what was the experience on that end?
No, man. When I was younger, I just liked to fight a lot. I guess that's probably the best way to describe it. I did, I wrestled when I was in middle school, wrestled in high school, and decided to continue on with competition and started fighting.
Was there kind of were you training just to train and then you decided you wanted to compete later, or was the goal to always eventually get out there and, compete in the cage or I guess a ring eventually?
I think my goal was always to compete. I started training with the intention of having my first fight and just kind of never stopped.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to get some backstory on that nickname of yours there, Your Local Ninja. That's one of the better MMA nicknames I've seen in a while. Where does that come from? What's the backstory on that?
That's actually from some friends of mine when we were in Oklahoma. When I used to live in Oklahoma, I first started training. I was traveling and fighting a lot down there, and they called me their ninja. I was just a ninja, just the kid who went around beating everybody up. So when I moved back to Chicago and I started fighting more locally in my hometown, I just decided to use the name Your Local Ninja. Anytime I fight in Illinois or the Chicagoland area, that's the name that I use. But it doesn't get used outside of the home, obviously, because I'm not their local ninja.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't want to just show up to a random town and people expect you to start throwing ninja stars or something like that, right?
Right.
No, but you've had some interesting forays as of late, and just, in general throughout your career. Like, I noticed you have a bit of a tie-in with Chris Lytle there. Like, he seemed to get pretty fired up when he was talking about how you guys were on a similar card and everything like that. He's like, oh yeah, another Indiana boy on the card. He's a good fighter and everything like that. What does it mean to you to get the respect of, your peers, and especially someone who's a veteran like, Chris Lytle there?
It's wild because I grew up watching guys like Chris Lytle and Joe Riggs and and then Leonard Garcia, and then I get deeper into my career, and I'm on cards with these guys, and they're praising me for my talents and my abilities. It's almost surreal, It's one of those things that I never really expected to happen or have or accomplish, you know what I mean? And then you have these legends of the game, giving me praise. It's exciting, it's something that I never thought I would be a part of.
Yeah, and I understand he's been calling some fights for Coliseum Combat for a little bit, so having him kind of analyze your fights must be kind of surreal on some level as well, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris has been the Coliseum Combat commentator for quite some time now, so I've been able to maintain contact and whatnot with them through that, and then now that we're both fighting for bare knuckle fighting championships, it's just another way for me to be able to stay in communication and keep in contact with the legends of the sport. Guys have been doing this since I was a kid. It's an awesome opportunity for me.
Yeah, and you've been instructing for a while too, seemingly concurrently as you're an MMA fighter. What benefits in your own efforts as a fighter do you get from trying to impart that wisdom to people through your efforts as an MMA instructor?
Being an instructor and a coach to the younger fighters and the newer generations, it really helps me hone my own skills and my own abilities, because I have to make sure that the things that I'm teaching these people are true and accurate and things that can be done in a real life situation. So I'm constantly evaluating my own game and questioning my own tactics and the way that I go about things. And it just forces me to stay sharp and be on my toes, because I got to make sure that I'm giving the next generation, good information and good techniques to push their own careers.
Yeah, and it seemed like when you were living in Oklahoma, too, that work you were doing with, Grady Brewer and everything like that, like he kind of had, the boxing set up, and then you started introducing some of the, admittedly, like you were saying, lower level kind of grappling stuff, because you were, trying to grow in your own efforts at the same time as well. But I think that's a cool story. Like, you're imparting the wisdom you have to people, but you're also making huge strides in your own right. I mean, it's what MMA is all about, right?
Absolutely. You have to be a complete fighter, and you have to be willing to evolve and accept the fact that you're you're not as talented in some facets that you think you are, and just constantly push yourself to be a better version of yourself. It's one of the harder parts of the sport, believe it or not.
No, I believe it. I mean, you've got a good finishing rate amongst your MMA wins, I was noticing. I mean, 70% amongst the MMA wins you have there, but I also mentioned the bare knuckle boxing forays as of late there. And I'm kind of wondering, it seems like that's something you really want to do going forward. Are you looking to maybe take MMA fights while also participating in BKB, or is it straight like bare knuckle kind of stuff for the foreseeable future?
To be as blunt as possible, I don't fight for fun. I fight to get paid. So whoever calls me and offers the most money is going to be who I'm going to fight for. I love bare knuckle as an organization. I would love to continue fighting for them. I also love MMA as a sport. And if I get a phone call for a good organization and I think the fight is an intelligent fight for myself and my career, then I'll take it. I'm not eliminating any options for my bills to be paid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just wondering how much the BKB methodology differs, though. Like, does it maybe lend itself more to, like, a high-volume kind of punch approach? Do you have a certain, I guess, strike economy where you have to be, like, super, super careful picking your shots so you don't, like, break your hand or your wrists or anything like that? Like, does the methodology differ between bare-knuckle boxing and MMA in pretty big ways?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are things that you just simply cannot get away with in bare-knuckle boxing. In MMA, you've got pads. You've got 4 to 6 ounces of padding on your hands. You can eat a couple of shots. You can take a couple of shots, and still be able to weather the storm most of the time. Bare knuckle boxing is not the case. You can't just eat 1 or 2. You're going to get cut open, or you're going to get knocked out. It happens. And then you also have to think about, there's the grappling aspect and the clinching aspect. That if you're in an MMA fight and your opponent's got better hands than you, you've got the option to take the fight to the ground. You've got the option to work your wrestling, your jiu-jitsu, so on and so forth. But once you get into a bare knuckle boxing match, it's you and your hands and your brain, and you have to be technical. You have to be more intelligent, and you only really have one option, and that's your hands. So it's your approach is going to be different, and absolutely the methodology is going to be different. How you are attacking your opponent physically, mentally, it's all going to be different. Everything comes into effect in a much different manner. The way that I like to, the simplest way I can put it is, MMA is way more fun. Bare knuckle boxing is way more intense.
Yeah, do you think that's the reason for why there's been that rise domestically in popularity for bare knuckle boxing in recent years?
Yeah, I think it's primal in people. It's one of those things where, Chris talks about a lot. He says he was at a professional boxing match and a fight broke out in the crowd. And everybody stopped watching the pros in the ring, and they turned and watched the guys fighting in the crowd.
Yeah.
It's just a primal thing that we have. As soon as you start putting padding on, it becomes a sport. And bare knuckle boxing, it really kind of pulls that sport out of it. It's a fight. I'm fist fighting you. I'm trying to hurt you. You know what I'm saying? It's not I'm not trying to score points. I'm not trying to pitter pat. You can't do that when you don't have gloves. So it's just, the mentality is different. Like I said, it's just way more intense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did a write-up for one of your last BKB efforts there against Diego Guerrejo. You guys had that BKB rematch there. And just, a great Till Grillo showing just the resiliency and the heart and everything like that. But, you're putting those hands on him and dropping him, and the bout, mercifully was stopped eventually in that 4th frame there. So, just a great fight all around. But I'm kind of curious if you, maybe see like a third fight coming out of this. Like, do you see yourself standing, on opposite sides of the ring with Diego Guerrejo down the line at some point? Not necessarily next fight, but just at some point in general?
I think it's inevitable, that we have a third fight. The first fight was really good. It was action-packed, but it only lasted 90 seconds, and he got the better of me in that one. Second fight was a much better fight. We were both much better prepared, and I was able to learn from my mistakes in the first one. So now we're sitting at 1-1. I think a third fight's going to be inevitable. I would love to be built up a little more and get some other fights, getting some other experience. Diego's essentially been the center of my life for the last 8 months. I would like to have somebody else, with my, to focus my attention on somebody else. But yeah, to answer your question, a third fight's going to be inevitable. Hopefully it's later rather than sooner. But yeah, I think a third fight's going to have to happen.
Oh, yeah, and for sure, that's what I meant. Like, it's definitely the kind of series you can give a little breathing room to. It's something that's going to always be there, so both of you guys can take like a couple respective fights and then meet up for the rubber match eventually.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that would be much better for everybody, for our careers, for the sport, for the show as a whole, to take a little step back and let us get some experience against other fighters and go from there.
Yeah, and it seems like you're getting some promo going on for, the next bare knuckle fighting events going in the future, like the BKFC 5 being around the corner and everything like that. So it seems like some good things are popping up on that end. I also noticed you have, a great cut man. I mean, Stitch Duran was rolling with you for that last effort there. How important is it to surround yourself with those kind of people? I mean, also on the end of it, you have, certain guys you train with like Team Colon, Evolution Team MMA, Alliance Jiu-Jitsu. So it really seems like you surround yourself with good people. How important is it to have a great team around you in an individual sport like this?
Well, you're only as good as the people that you surround yourself with, So if you're surrounding yourself with quality people and you have a strong support structure, the possibilities are endless. So I would say it's just as important. Training is just as important as anything else. Your mental health is just as important as anything else. So when you surround yourself with good people and good training partners, you have no choice but to get better and to evolve. It's even though this fighting is an individual sport, it is a team effort, and the better your team and the better people in your corner, the better off you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, it seems like you have some cool connections, though. Like, I noticed Bobby Emmons had that white trash BJJ no-gi invitational there with a lot of the different MMA individuals in there. But you also had a fight with Bobby Emmons there as well and kind of continued your then undefeated streak at the time. So kind of a cool connection, and sort of underpins the neat thing about mixed martial arts or just martial arts in general. It's like, oh, hey, I know we went at it at this one point, but come out to this submission grappling tournament that I have going on. So I thought that was kind of a neat sort of connection there.
Yeah, Bobby's a great guy, man. And me and Bobby, ever since we fought, like, we've been friends. We talked, we hung out. I like to go down and train with him every now and again, and he's a great guy. And that's one of the cool things about this sport as a whole is the community is really tight knit. We get a lot of these guys. Yeah, I'm friends with most of the people that I fought. Tyler Combs went and tried out down in Philly just a couple of weeks ago, and I put in a good word for him with the guys at Bare Knuckle. I love these guys. All the guys that I get in there and I fight, like, we are a very small demographic and a very small population. We're less than 1% of the human population that will willingly step into a cage and fist fight somebody. So for me to have animosity towards somebody who's no different than me is silly. I love these guys. I love all the people that I train with and that I've shared a cage with, and I couldn't be more thankful for any of them.
Yeah, and I mean, like, all that being said, like, you still have these, like, volatile, high octane kind of fights, even despite, like, having that intrinsic respect for your opponent. Like, I mean, that Austin Tweedy fight, a lot of people regard as, one of the great fights in HFC's history, arguably the greatest.
Arguably the greatest, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Me and Austin Tweedy, we put on a hell of a show. Me and Thomas Gifford, who just got signed to the UFC, we put on a hell of a show for HFC. Congratulations to Thomas, obviously, for getting signed to the UFC. And for finishing me, he's a monster. He's a great, a really talented guy. So, I've always been known for having exciting fights and for not trying to just score points. Like, I'm here to fight you. Like, I'm here to beat your ass. I'm not here to fucking score points. I'm not here to kind of win. I'm here to make sure that everybody knows that I was the one who did that to you. That's just my fighting style. Like I said, it's one of those things that I grew up doing. I've always been into doing, and I'm not here to score points. I'm not here to play a sport. You don't play fighting, plain and simple. You don't play boxing. You don't play MMA. You fight. So that's always been my mentality going into these fights, and I think that's why my fights are as exciting as they are.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's clearly worked in your favor up until this point. But I mean, I mentioned real early on in the interview, like you had that Bellator fight, and it seemed like you had a canceled bout with Bellator as well for Bellator 198. So there's a degree of connection with that promotion. But also there was a period where you were looking to get things going with the Ultimate Fighter tryouts, and there's some crowdfunding effort there. If you had your druthers, if you had your way with the situation, would you be looking to go maybe sign with a promotion like Bellator or UFC? Like, is there any kind of preference between the brands?
No, like I said, I fight to make money. This is how I get paid. It doesn't. I from the very beginning, I've always said I have no interest in being the best. I have no interest in being the greatest. I do this because I enjoy it and it pays my bills. So if somebody calls me and offers me a fight and it makes sense to me, it makes sense for my career, then more likely than not, I'm going to take it. But it just has to make sense. You know what I'm saying? I'm in a position right now where I do have Bellator fights in my past. I do have a lot of really exciting performance bonuses and exciting fights. I've fought for organizations all over the place, and I don't have to beg anybody anymore. I don't have to beg the UFC to give me a fight. I don't have to beg Bellator to give me a fight. My resume and my record stands for itself. So if I get an offer and it makes sense, like I said, chances are I'll probably take it. But I have no aspirations of fighting for any specific organization.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's all about, making the money and getting the Benjamins sorted. But to that point, I noticed you had a status a little while ago where it said you wanted to apologize, beforehand to, some of your sponsors and stuff like that, where like a company sort of didn't end up coming through. How frustrating is those aspects of the game, just like sort of the business end of it? Is it kind of like a frustrating, like disheartening kind of dynamic almost, or does it just galvanize you and motivate you more to keep pushing it?
It's one of those things. It's a tricky situation. Like with the Bellator fight, when my opponent had a seizure in the sauna 12 hours before weigh-ins. You know what I mean? That's one of those situations that you can't really plan for. But we are in a sport where we're very few people who will step in and do the things that we do. So it's upsetting and it's disappointing when you line up sponsors and you line up fights and you get things squared away and then it doesn't fall through. Yeah, it's disheartening. But it's part of the sport. It's just like anything else. There are things that you can't plan for, and you just got to roll with the punches and go.
Yeah, no, definitely got to roll through with that there. But it seems like that's kind of like a bit of a popular theme in your life there. You had a status or a tweet a little while ago where you're saying, got in a car accident, cops taking forever. Damn it, I just want to train. Was that a serious sort of accident there? Did everything end up kind of being okay with that, or?
Can you say that one more time? I had a...
Oh, no, it's okay. I just noticed you had a tweet.
Okay. No, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. No, it wasn't a serious car accident, but it was enough. It was enough for me to not be able to go to practice. I was on my way to practice and got in a car accident. And like I said, it wasn't anything serious, but it was enough for that I had to sit on the side of the road and talk to cops and deal with shenanigans for, an hour and a half and not be able to make it to practice. But to be honest with you, I had completely forgotten about that. That was so long ago, too.
No, it just showed the dedication. It's like there's an accident going on, but it's like, I just want to get out there and train sort of thing. But it seems like you're a big fan of Army of the Pharaohs and stuff like that from what I was able to tell there. Is that kind of like the popular sort of music to train to? Like, are you jamming out to a lot of like Army of the Pharaohs and like Jedi mind tricks when you're training, or do you have a particular genre or set of artists?
It varies, honestly, but it's usually something a little darker, something a little heavier. I listen to Army of Pharaohs and Jedi Mind Tricks quite a bit. I also listen to a lot of like Tool and Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that at the gym. Just anything that is high octane and keeps me pumped up and ready to go. That's what I like to have playing while I'm at the gym. It just helps keep your mindset right, make you feel tough.
Oh yeah, it lends itself well to all that for sure. But you've been great with your time, man. Is there anything you want to add as a parting thought as we're wrapping up here?
I just want to say thanks, man. I really appreciate you calling me and having me on the show. I thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I know. It was great having you on, and we'll have to have you on in the future, maybe once some more bare-knuckle boxing announcements get rolling, because it seems like they like you over there at that promotion. You deliver the goods, so I imagine they'll bring you back there.
Well, thank you very much. I hope they like me, and I hope to be back on the show. I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And there's actually like a local broadcast kind of around here at a place called Better Than Fred's in Grand Prairie, Alberta, where they were playing the bare knuckle fighting championship event there, BKFC 4. So making some movements there for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, it was
awesome.
neat. I was like, oh, really? They're playing that bare knuckle event? Oh, that's great.
Very cool. Very exciting. That's great. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, but people should be checking out Tom Shoaff and just, keeping on the radar and everything like that, all the updates for future fights and stuff like that. Like I said, delivers the goods. But again, appreciate all the insights and time there, Tom, and enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Thank you very much. You have a great day too.